Can I have your attention, please? I'd like to call the meeting to order. And welcome to the March 3rd, 2008 Lowell Planning Board Public Hearings meeting. The first matter on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 7th, 2008 meeting. Any of the board members have any comments on the minutes? Any corrections? Or if not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes and place them on file.
So moved.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Moving along this evening, we do have 3 public hearings scheduled. The first public hearing is 868 Middlesex Street. The planning board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by one Mejia for a site plan review for the project located at 848-868 Middlesex Street. The project includes demolition of a portion of the existing industrial building and redevelopment of the remaining structure to include a commercial unit on the first floor, a church on the second, and 4 residential units on the third floor. Demolition of the portion of the building will allow the construction of 28 additional parking spaces for a total of 36 parking spaces. The project is located in the traditional mixed-use zoning district and requires site plan review under section 11.4 of the zoning ordinance. In our packet this evening, we did receive information from the Planning and Development that we didn't have the requisite advertisements in the local paper, and they are requesting that we continue the matter. Aaron, do you want to be heard on that, or is that basically self-explanatory?
Yeah, that's basically it. Just as a side note, everything is now in order for a public hearing to be taken care of for the next meeting, which is March 17th, so.
So you just want to introduce yourself to us? I mean, I know you've been here before. I know you missed
That's fine.
Mejia and the
Good
planning
evening,
department.
Mr. Chairman.
So the planning department has requested to us that we continue the matter to March 17th, because there was a problem with the public hearing notice. And so,
Is that going to be sufficient time for you to present your new plans?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
so you'll have them in on time, so Division of Planning
Everything should
Development
be-
can look at them,
That
pass
is
them out to all the department heads and any comments they have to give you feedback on those prior to the meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Aaron has been very helpful. Also, the
right.
board have been very helpful. Thank you.
That being the case, I'll entertain a motion that we continue the matter for a 2-week period to our next meeting, which is March 17th, 08.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, to continue to March 17th with the consent of the applicant.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Matter to continue to that date. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
The next public hearing we have on tonight is 133 Clark Road. A public hearing will be held to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Jeremy McSorley for special permit review of a project located at 133 Clark Road. This proposal seeks to modify plans that previously received a special permit in order to relocate the lot lines. One lot will have 40 feet of frontage on Clark Road and consist of 51,393 square feet of land area. The second parcel lot will have 60 feet of frontage on Clark Road and will have 20,064 square feet of land area. This project is located in a suburban, single-family zoning district. The project requires special permit review under section 5.2.9 for frontage reduction for large, single-family lots for the Lowell zoning ordinance. This matter was before us a couple of meetings ago, and we had the matter continued today to have both areas before us for the special permit as well as for the length of the driveway, I believe. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, James Flood, 81 Bridge Street, representing Jeremy and Darlene McSorley. Jeremy's here tonight with me, along with Jack Lucci. I think Jack is going to give you a new plan based on a comment from the traffic engineer regarding the width of the curb cut, and he's reduced it, but I think you'll recall we were here I think it was 2 weeks ago or a month ago, regarding the modification of the prior special permit to establish the two lots. And I think at that time there were a couple of issues that were brought up. One had to do with the neighbor next door, Mrs. Nichols, and Jeremy did go out and met with her and came up with a plan for landscaping and buffering of her lot. And I think I'm led to believe that she did send you people a letter. I didn't see it, but they have reached an agreement, and she's satisfied with what we're doing. The other had to do with the common driveway, and I think I sent in a copy of a proposed draft of a common driveway agreement, which would deal with both lots. As to the second request for special permit for the driveway over 200 feet, I think when you measure it from Clark Road, the 200 feet would come up a little into the parking area that we have proposed, which is kind of in line with the garages, but the front door is approximately 250 feet away. I think, as the statute says, or your zoning says, if it's, the issue is whether it's safe for safety vehicles, whether police and fire, and I think we did receive a letter from the fire department and from the police department approving it. There were some comments from the city engineer. I'll turn it over to Jack. He can address those, and he can explain the plan. I think you're familiar with what we want to do there, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Jack, if I could just ask you to, we did receive the comments from the department heads, so I know you have proposed a new plan for our consideration. If you could touch, when you go through the demonstration, what you've changed on the new plan compared to what we saw in the past, and then you could address these comments at the same time, if you don't mind, please?
Sure.
Sure, I'd appreciate that. It'll make it easier for us to follow, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you,
My
sir.
name's Jack Rudy. I'm from Dana Perkins' office, and as Attorney Flood said, last time we were here, basically, it's essentially the same plan. A couple of minor things that I did after I met with the city engineer last Wednesday. She had expressed some concern that runoff from this portion of the site might be able to run off the property and onto the abutter's property. So I revised the grading on the south end of the lot to intercept any runoff that might make it down to the property line and direct it back into essentially what we have at the rear of the lot, which is a stormwater retention area, if you will. We did calculations. She was looking for some calculations, drainage calcs, and I got a comment letter from her as I was walking in tonight, so. But anyway, we did drainage calcs, and we are totally retaining the 10-year storm within the confines of the lot. She was looking for something on drainage, even though stormwater management state policy is that single-family house lots are exempt. We went ahead anyway and designed it so that the 10-year storm would be totally retained on the lot. We're doing that by way of the landscape berm at the rear of the lot. That'll be a raised landscape berm that will prevent any runoff from exiting the rear of the lot. Additionally, she asked that I extend the berm up here, and so, that's what the new plan shows. We've essentially raised that side of the property to prevent any runoff from leaving. The second comment, I think there was a comment from the traffic engineer about the width of the curb cut.
Yeah.
And that was the second revision that I made. The curb cut at street line was going to be greater than the regulations allowed. So what I did was I reduced the width of the curb cut to conform with the City of Lowell regulations of maximum of 24 feet, and that's what it is now, shown on the plan. So other than those two revisions, this plan's exactly as you saw it a month ago. I can try to go through her the city engineer's comments here to, just as a quick look through. The drainage, she says, drainage calcs are for proposed construction only, nothing submitted for existing conditions, so a comparison cannot be made. We weren't trying to compare existing runoff to proposed runoff. All we were trying to do was to retain the total proposed condition. So that's what we did when we designed stormwater management area. It doesn't matter what it is today, but what it is when it's built, that's what you have to retain, and so that's how we sized the proposed stormwater management area. Sewer options, we had proposed to tie into the sewer on Douglas Road. That sewer is about 30 feet in the ground. We had asked if we could do an interior drop within the manhole, and she was of the opinion that that diameter of that manhole on Douglas is not large enough to allow for an interior drop. So she was requesting, or actually requiring, that we make it an exterior drop. Since that time, we talked to Jeremy, and it's just cost prohibitive to do it that way. So when I met with her on Wednesday, I suggested that we might go with a single pump system and tie into the gravity sewer that exists on Clark Road. It would be much less costly to do that. So Jeremy's going to weigh that. That's an engineering thing that, you know, she has approval authority on, so, you know, it doesn't really affect the special permits, but, so that's an option that I think he's probably going to do. Stormwater management of the southern property line, I just went over that. We're going to retain it on site. The driveway to be stopped from flowing to abutting property. Jack said owner would extend the berm. And that, again, is what we talked about a minute ago. Same thing. She's talking about this area down here. And then the last comment she had was driveway. Existing grading will force runoff towards Clark Road. Grading a proposed driveway will direct runoff directly to abutting property. This is not allowed. I'm a little bit at a loss to see what she's talking about here. If you look at the proposed grading, on Clark Road, the existing grade's about 103.5, and our first grade in our site is 102, 100, and it goes down to about, 92 at the end of the driveway. So I don't know what she's talking about as far as that. The grading that we're showing shows all the water running back into the site. And down here, what we're doing is we're directing the runoff to come around this side of the house and then back out in this way. We're going to create a slight swale here. So this might be what she's talking about, directing it to the abutting property. It's towards the other lot that Jeremy's creating. It does, in fact, go down the property line between the two lots. So I think that might be what she's talking about. And, if she doesn't like that, I think we can revise that swale to contain it on that lot 17. And that would address that concern for us. I think that's about it. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
Thank you. Attorney Flood, do you have anybody else who wants to speak on behalf of the applicant at this
Nope.
point in time?
No, we're here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here like to speak in favor of this project? In favor? In favor? Favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. No, let me back up for 1 second. Council, we did receive a letter in the packet that was by Patricia Nichols. I believe that's the neighbor who's the abutter who we talked about.
Is that on the left, yes.
On the left, who you talked about in your presentation?
Yep.
I'm just gonna they asked about reading into the record, so I will. It says, "Dear Attorney Linehan and Planning Board members, this is from Patricia Nichols, 143 Clark Road. It states off, I have received a letter and landscape proposal from Darlene and Jeremy Musoli in relation to their property on 133 Clark Road. Please enter these documents into public record and include them in any plans which concern their Clark Road parcels. I find these plans sufficient and fully endorse the current proposal for special permit review put forth by Mr. and Mrs. McSorley. I would also like to extend my thanks to you and all the board members for your help in this matter." And then we have 2 letters enclosed from her. One to Ms. Nichols, I appreciate you working with Darlene and I. This is from Jerry McSorley. Based on our meeting, I have summarized what our plans are on the attached sheet. As you know, our business specializes in high-end residential landscape design, and with this project being our own home, I can assure you it will be with the highest standards. We will work with you any way we can. The landscaping and screening would take place in spring of summer of 2008, not when the proposed house project is back, and back is built, excuse me. If you have any questions or would like to meet with me again to go over these phase, please let me know. Signed by Jeremy McSorley. P.S. If you would like to meet for further meeting, please call me. And then I have, it goes on in the landscaping, and it states, install a gate with rock pillars on existing 133 Clark Road driveway entrance, approximately halfway down driveway, even with existing front corner on 133 house. See picture for gate pillar example. A coordinating 6-foot-high end vinyl fence would begin at a gate along our adjoining property lines and would continue towards the back of the yard, along with garage through the end of your wooden stockade fence, which would be removed at your discretion. The new fence is double-sided and would be just as attractive on both sides, with no need for you to pay to replace your own. The landscape berm would be installed at the back of the property lines facing your pool, and then the same 6-foot vinyl fence would be installed on top of the berm, giving an overall screening. In addition, large spruce trees will be planted on the berm, of which mature to 20 feet. At the beginning of 133 driveway before the new gate and pillars, the strip of grass between our driveway and between your driveway and ours, I would propose installing irrigation, a small 2 to 3 foot mounted planting bed with grass to break up the strip. The same planting could continue on your side of the newly installed vinyl fence up to your garage. None of these changes would be at a cost to you. The landscaping work on fencing and screening would take place approximately spring, summer of 2008. That will place and file in the record. So I'll put that on, under as being in favor of the project. So, reading that into the record, I'll close that portion of the public hearing, and I'll open up to anybody who'd like to speak in opposition. Anybody like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to any board members who have any questions they'd like to ask the applicant, or through the chair.
I have a couple.
Okay, Mr. Lockhart?
Jack, you had mentioned the driveway width of, or the curb cut width, excuse me, of 24 feet. There's 2 references here in this documentation that we have. One from the traffic engineer that the maximum is 15 feet. Yeah, I don't, can we get some clarification on that, please?
Yeah,
I didn't look it up, so.
In the suburban single-family district, the max curb cut is 15 feet.
The reason we made it a little larger is because of the house, we certainly reduced the width of that.
Yeah, okay. All right. And also, the traffic engineer was looking for sidewalks and curbing shall match existing.
Yeah, we should.
Can you just point,
I did
work that out?
plan to show that as well.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Mr. Claremont?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I think you're not looking for the waiver on the driveway any longer because it's under 200 feet, is that correct?
It's over 200 feet.
It's over 200, so
Yeah.
you are looking for the waiver on the driveway?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
The-
that's the second special permit, Joe.
All right. The letter that was submitted to us that the chairman read into the record seems to indicate some work that the applicant has agreed to do on behalf of the abutter. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and he would have no objection if these were placed on as a
No.
condition of approval?
No, he's agreed to it, so we have no problem whatsoever.
All right. I have no other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Claremont. Mr. Fischett or Mr. Gedman, any questions, concerns? Mr. Gedman, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first of all, I'd like to compliment Mr. McSorley for working with Ms. Nichols working out an agreement. It was nice to see that letter here tonight, that everything's cool. It's always good to move into a new neighborhood with good relations with your neighbors, so I think it's a good thing. We had previously put a deed restriction on these lots, barring further subdivision. Any problem with maintaining that on these lots?
No.
Okay, so I'd like
No, we
to,
have,
I'd like to make sure we maintain that condition on both of these lots, barring any further subdivision. As you know, I'm still a little concerned about the kind of odd shape of that Lot 18, but under the circumstances with what you have to work with there and the requirements, I guess we can overlook that. I had one other question, but escapes me right now, Mr. Chairman. If it comes back to me, I'll ask again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fischett?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. As well, I certainly want to compliment you for working with the abutter on the screening. That was very important in this particular proposal. And just to kind of sum up where this started, I believe this was originally a 5-house subdivision that you're abandoning.
Right.
And subdividing, keeping the existing home that's on Clark Road.
right.
And building your own home in the back. So certainly, from the streetscape, the impact to to Clark Road, the existing home is going to stay there. So I really, I think that lessens the impact. And not having 5 homes back here and a full-size street servicing that subdivision, I think really for even Ms. Nichols and the abutters, I think clearly that's a better proposal. So I certainly like the direction that this went in from the very beginning. We certainly have evolved. Originally, I think the existing home was going to come down, and we were talking about 2 drives versus 1. I'm still up in the air regarding the width of the drive, and if you could elaborate a little bit on the rationale, because I was thinking the same thing, is I don't want it to look like a street, but understanding that it's servicing
2 houses.
2 homes, and but certainly from the street, I don't want this to look like a road going in there. I want it to look like a driveway, and if you can just elaborate a little on the benefits from staying at 22 versus 15.
Well, the actual width of the proposed
Or
driveway
24.
was 20 feet.
Yes.
The curb
And the
cut
curb
to
cut.
curb cut was going to be 24 2-foot radius on either side. And I was under the impression that that was what I could do in this zone, but I guess I was mistaken. So we will essentially have to reduce the size of the driveway by about 5 feet to accommodate the regulation, to come in conformance with the regulation. You know, as far as access to the site, it's only 2 houses, so I don't see it as a problem. I mean, it's not like you're creating a subdivision with a lot of houses on it and so forth. It's just the house in the back and the house in the front, so.
So you're comfortable with reducing that to what's required then? Okay, no,
Yeah,
that's,
we reduced it to 15 feet. Is
Yep.
that what you're thinking?
yeah.
Would that do it with the curb cut,
If that's what it has to be,
Jack?
then
Yeah.
that's what it has to be,
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I think where there's only 2 now, I know the last time we had the same issue on the driveway, it was a longer driveway and it was a bigger development, and I think the chairman wanted it 20 feet.
Right, you were servicing
But
hundreds of units,
That's
right,
much different. So
exactly.
this is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's not a problem.
As a matter of fact, because from Clark Road, it'll really look like the driveway servicing the existing home, so it really is not going to change that, so. All right, as long as that,
And as far as the impact, it'll be a lot, I mean, it's a less impact now, but it'll be even less.
less impervious surface
Right,
and all of that,
exactly.
sure, absolutely, yeah, okay. Very good. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Just a couple of comments. I like the plan here that we're only adding the 1 house compared to when it came in before for the 5 subdivision. As I stated before, I think I was the only one who voted against the 5 subdivision because of concerns of some of the neighbors had on both sides as well as across the street with the bend in the road and the headlights going out to the people across the street who testified, and a couple of concerns they had about how close they were to some of the other neighbors, and some of them wanted the tree to stay on Clark Road, and after all the public hearing on that. Just one thing, Jack, I know this has came to your attention now. For the road to be 15 feet, where would you take off the 5? Would you take off the 5 closer to the neighbor to the left, or would you just cut it down 2.5, or Would you do it, that way give more of a buffer to the lady to your left?
Yeah, I would think that we'd try to
Okay,
give her
I
a
just
little
think that'd
bit
be
more
nicer, so
buffer.
she'd have a little more room.
He's planning some landscaping over there anyway, so,
You give him a lot
that's
more
gonna
room to
plan
work
out.
with, and
yeah, Yeah, that-
there's no problem with cutting the 5 feet to the left to give a little more room?
I don't think so. That's all
I
right.
just thought that'd be,
And-
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
another,
pick up the 5 feet.
yeah. A point you just brought up, though, some of the neighbors did want that big tree
Right.
in the front to stay, and it is gonna stay.
That was a
Because the
big
house-
thing at the first public hearing when you did the 5, right?
Yeah, that's gonna stay too. That big
Yeah,
one's gonna
because I
stay.
know a lot of people like that, and had the character on the road, and the road bended a little bit there, and some had the concern, the way you come down Clark, how it bends a little bit, and they talked about a little bit of the speed on Clark Road, and then I talked about how we had the stripes on Clark Road, and they tried to cut the stripes down, and they tried to stop it again, and that
Yep.
didn't work, then the city converted it back to try to break up the traffic flow, and they tried different ways to slow down the traffic, and that was one of the concerns that a lot of the neighbors have, because where that traffic picks up, where the road bends a little bit there, and they were concerned about the amount of people pulling in and pulling out, especially how close it is to the next street on the right, when you're heading down Clark, how that would, people pulling
Right
out.
about here. Long Meadow Drive, is it?
Yeah, people had concerns there, and they also had the one going past that side on the right-hand side with the next street right there. It's escaping me right now, on Hovey. People had concerns on how close it was to Hovey, traffic pulling in, pulling out. So I do like that. I like the fact that you did work with the Ms. Nichols on that matter. I know you're entitled to the one driveway. I know, as I said before, I prefer to see 2 driveways, but I know it's allowed in our zoning, especially when you have a house, 2 houses this side. I'd like to see people have their own driveway, but I know on this lot it wouldn't work, and that's my personal preference, but in the zoning, you're entitled to it, where when you have 2 lots of big size, you'd like to have your own driveway, especially a neighborhood of that size. I know right now there won't be a problem if that's Mr. McSorley's and that's his mother's, he'll maintain it, but as you know, we always have to look to future things of who would maintain it, and whether that's a problem when you get a 50,000 square foot house and you're talking to your neighbor who's 20,000 about who's gonna take care of the driveway. But,
That's why I split up the cost,
yeah.
2/3, 1/3,
So,
so.
but I mean, I have no problem with that, because it is, we do allow that. I know I made that comment before Attorney Flood, and you indicated that, do we do allow it? And I said, yeah, I know, and then when you said you looked into it, you know, it really wouldn't fit on the plan.
No, it wouldn't.
That was a comment I had. But besides that, I have no problems with the matter now that it looked like Jack addressed most of the issues with the city engineer and the things that were outstanding. I think there was one comment here, Jack, I think you touched on that, was from the wastewater to do with the manhole being
Oh, yeah,
moved.
there was,
Did you touch on that one, or do you have a problem with that? Did you
and
see that one? I don't know if you saw that one.
I did see that one, and they kind of were backing up what I wanted to do with the interior drop, but the city engineer overruled, so we're going to have to,
Go with the city engineer on that? Okay.
Yeah, that's on Douglas Road, that's what he was talking
Right,
about.
okay, yeah, because I know before, you were gonna, when you came in with the other plan, you were gonna do the easement, go down and tie into Douglas Road there, right?
We have that and everything, but,
Yeah. I know you have construction going on up there now. You're putting an addition on the back of the house, is it, or the side?
Yeah.
And you're doing work on the side, you're doing work on the
the
driveway?
existing home.
Right. Well, they put an addition on the back, I believe, right? Right. I have no further comments, okay? Any planning board members have any further comments, or?
Mr. Chairman, I remember my question now. Mr. McSorley, I wonder if you could comment on, not that it has any relevance on the permits, but just on the size, the square footage size of the home that you're going to be building back there?
We haven't finalized any plans yet, so we're really not too sure on the size at this point.
Okay. All right, I was just curious if you had gone forward with those plans yet.
I mean, we figured out what it would be, Steve, if you took, if we used that footprint. I think, was it, the living area would be 5,000 square feet, or 5,300, and then the garage area would be another 2,500, so.
Okay,
But-
thank you.
Any further questions? If not, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion for approval, first of the special permit under 5.2.9, with conditions, one, that the driveway and curb cut are going to be reduced to 15 feet to meet the zoning. Second, that the landscaping plan as addressed in Mr. McSorley's letter to Ms. Nichols would be incorporated into the record, and that be entered as a condition of the approval as well. Third, that the sidewalks and the curbing will match the existing. as previously stated. The common driveway easement submitted by the applicant will be reviewed and approved by the solicitor's office. That there be a condition barring further subdivision of this property once this particular property is built out. And that the former subdivision, 5-lot subdivision, shall be abandoned once this subdivision of the 2-lot is built out. And finally, I think the condition that the large tree in the front of the property is going to stay.
There's 2 special permits, Joe. You want to?
Yeah, that's
He's
the
making the
first
motion, the
one.
first one, I think, first.
Yeah.
We're doing one at a
And the
time.
He referred to 5.29, and that's the frontage, not the length of the driveway. The other
Right.
one is the
Right.
length of the
We'll
driveway.
do the driveway next.
So there has been a motion for one special permit. Any discussion, or everyone second the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made in second.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just clarify that the deed restriction applies to both lots in the subdivision, if that's okay with Mr. Claremont.
Yeah, no problem.
Right, okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, there's been a motion made in second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. Anybody against? Hearing none, that motion carries. 5 in favor and nobody against. So that's one special permit.
I'd also move approval of the special permit for the driveway length and the 6.7.2 with the same conditions.
A second. Oop,
Motion's made
second.
and second. Any discussion?
Speak up.
If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Anybody in opposition? Hearing none, that motion carries. 5 in favor and 0 against. Good luck, and wish you well.
Yeah, that worked out well.
Ms. McFarland, can I just ask you another unrelated matter? How you coming along with your car wash? I see you got construction there. I was just curious when it'll be open to get the salt off the cars.
Oh, yeah,
So I was driving by there the other day, and I was thinking I was gonna pull in if it was ready yet, but I can see you're still working on it. Oh, you think? Okay, good. I wish you well with it. 'Cause I was looking for it, because we really don't have one up there, because the one on the other end of Perry Street's been closed a long time. Correct, yep. I mean, the closest one in the neighborhood is in Tewksbury, the Shell station out on Roger Street. Correct. So, but good luck. I wish you well with it. Thank you. Good luck. Moving along to the next public hearing. Next public hearing is 1782 Middlesex Street. The planning board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Basil and Joanne Carana-Savas for a site plan review for a project located at the above address. The project proposes to raise 2 existing buildings currently on site. One building operating as a beauty salon. The other is a single-family home. Redevelopment of the site includes a 7,500 square foot commercial building and 19 space parking lot. The commercial building will hold 5 store fronts each, approximately 1,200 square feet in size. The project is located in the regional retail zoning district. It requires site plan review under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. Let me hear from the applicant, please.
Mr. Chairman, I have some plans that the engineer has completed that incorporate some of the recommended changes by the engineers department. I don't know if I can approach and
Sure,
drop
absolutely.
them off.
Counselor. Okay. Thank you. So I take it then, Counselor, you did receive some of the comments that were given from the department heads?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so in your narrative, if you could just pick those out as you go along with the new plan, so we could try to follow with you, if you don't mind?
Well, I had hoped that Mr. Close would be doing that,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. He's somewhere coming in the building now. I think he's been sighted out front.
All right, we
There
can
was
wait for
a-
him then.
There was an accident out
Wait for
front.
his expertise. Meanwhile, if you want to continue on the application, anything you'd like to say while we're waiting for the engineer? Or
Yes.
any introduction, whatever you feel is appropriate?
For the record, Mr. Chairman, I'm Attorney James A. Hall, 25 Fletcher Street, Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and I represent Mr. and Mrs. Basil Karen Atasis. They're the owners of the property at 1782 Middlesex Street. Just to draw your attention to this property, I'm sure that the board members are quite familiar with it. It's on the corner of Middlesex and Wood Street, right at the base of the Rourke Bridge across from Demolis's. It's presently located a large 3-story building where Basil had his beauty salon, operated his beauty salon for over 30 years. He has retired, and a third party is now operating the beauty salon as he did over the last 30 years. In addition to that building, there's another single-family building that's on Wood Street that would be that is presently used as a family residence that will be torn down along with the commercial building. In place of the commercial building and the single-family building would be a typical 1-story brick veneer, mansard roof, strip mall type of building that we see in the area of 7,500 square feet. We have listed that the bays would be 1,200. I understand that the present salon operator will be using 2,600 of it, so unlike what it said in the petition, they won't all be 1,200 or all 1,500. One I know would be 2,600. I believe three of them are going to be 1,200, but the total square footage would be just 1 foot short of 7,500 square feet. So depending on what uses are going into the building, we could adjust the sizes. We know one size is going to be 2,600 and another one would be 1,200. If we look at the petition, I don't know if Mr. Close is here yet, no? If we look at the petition, we see that we're looking for a site plan approval. There's no need under zoning for a variance or a special permit. So what we have, and we had hoped to present to you with the plans with Mr. Close here, and I really haven't got much more to say other than that. From an engineering point of view, I'd probably beg the board's indulgence, unless you have some questions, we wait for Mr. Close. I don't know if he's here shortly, or? I guess he called in, he said he'd be here in a couple of minutes, but if the board has any questions, we probably could address some of them.
So I have been up and looked at the site. I know, so you have the beauty salon, which is facing Middlesex Street,
Yes?
and then behind it, sorta, to the left, is that the residential family home that's almost like facing Wood Street?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's the two different buildings that are
Those both would come down, right.
Because I went around the back of the beauty salon, it's kind of like a white building, kind of high in the back with a staggered staircase, and there's parking back there as well, and then the single-family home is to the left of that,
Right.
right? Okay.
Yep.
So you're gonna take down both of those?
Both of those buildings would come down.
I just want to make sure I forget, fill the time waiting for Mr. Close to ask a question.
Mr. Close is here.
Okay. Mr. Close, we just had the introduction by Mr. Hall, and said he'd wait to have you take care of the engineering.
Yes, sir.
So he just basically gave us the introduction and told us how basically the building salon would be coming down, the single-family residence proposed to be coming down, and with the new development, the salon would take up one of those new units. Indicated that since the department heads made some comments on our original set of plans, that some of those comments have been addressed with a new set of plans. So one request that I have is if, as you do your introduction to us, or your narrative, if you can let us know what changes you made on the new plan, so we can try to follow from what you took from the old plan, okay?
Okay, just winging it, 90% of the changes were made. I think the only thing that I really had to do is check with your water department and check the sizing of the water pipe out front. There has been some abutting, the abutting lot just was developed, so I don't think we're gonna have any problem with the size of the water line. I'm just trying to find you have the, yes, thank you. Okay, I tried to lay out, even though it was not laid out in field, I tried to lay out the parking as it would pertain to today's standards on the existing area. It is, right now, it's fully paved out. So I just tried to fit in the amount of parking spaces that we've felt we could get in there, and I matched that with the new development. And as I understand it, the parking would be, as depending on what you put in there for a business, I guess it would be a call from the building department on what you could actually put in there. There's no, I don't think anybody knows exactly what, except for the salon. So we put as many parking spaces as we could under the regulations. The screening, I did add a, as far as screening, I did add a 6-foot stockade fence to the rear of the building. Currently, there is no fence there now, but we're going to put in a 6-foot stockade in lieu of any plantings, being that it's only 5 feet off the rear line, so we felt that we could use a 6-foot stockade, and that's per your regulations. In lieu of plantings, you could use a fence. And that would be that area along the residential that abuts the rear of the lot. I'm reading from, by the way, from Mr. Clausen, from Mr. Aaron Clausen's comments here. To the southerly lot line, I added a 5-foot planter strip. There isn't a business under construction at this time, just to the southerly lot line. I think it's a dentist's office at this time. I indicated that we would put in some plantings, shrubbery, and/or if the board feels some trees, whatever. But I did add that 5-foot buffer strip as per engineering department comments. As far as water meters and electric meters, they can be easily placed to the rear of the building. I don't feel that's a major issue. I'm moving on to the engineering comments, which overlap, by the way, with the planning department comments. Some of the things the sewer connection, that's at the time of the sewer. I believe your engineer is asking that the City of Lowell Engineering Department verify the sewer connection. I think that's standard operating procedure when you get a permit anyways, so that will be followed. And we intend to bring the sidewalks up to the city standards. If you look at the plan on the driveway section, it indicates a sloping curb, and I think it's 1 inch to 1 foot, which is the ADA standard on sidewalk for the disabled. So we've added that in. It was new to the plan, and it indicates the grading at the gutter line and the grading at the back of the sidewalk or paved area as it is now, and we're going to hold that grading. It's well within the standards, I believe, of the ADA. Your engineering department will have a second look at it to comment any further, and our planning department. I don't know exactly who commented on it, but we tried to put that in there. As far as the intersection itself, that is Wood Street, Middlesex Street, to add a, I think we'll wait for the comments from the engineering and planning department to see if they want a sidewalk ramp there, because that was actually reconstructed by the state, I believe, when they did the bridge. So I'm not so sure if we can just go in there and rearrange what they already put in. But if the city requires it, then we'll rearrange the curbstone to whatever the engineering department and/or planning needs. Okay, there's a comment here from the engineers: driveway to dumpster must provide for allowable setback between impervious surface and property line. That is that 5-foot buffer strip. There's no item number, but it's about the 4th item down on Lisa DeMayo's comments. That's that 5-foot buffer strip that I just talked about on the southerly lot line. I will provide the calcs. That's just a matter of, we have the before, we just have to come up with the post-construction calcs on what size system. That is, we're going to use a subsurface Caltech system, all underground, with the water collected in a basin, put it underground. We do have a perk test that was done on the abutting lot. It's within, say, 100 feet. I feel it's going to be the same. If the city requires more, then we'll do whatever perk test we have to. But it's the same material throughout the area. After pulling the soils data off the website, national website for soils, they appear to be the same throughout, mostly sandy throughout that area, right near the river, which is kind of the way it goes with whenever you have a river in an area, the washouts that come down, usually sandy material. And we got a pretty good run. I don't have it in my head what the run percolation test was. I don't feel it's going to be any different. And I kind of winged it on putting that system together for the sizing, but I'll have it down to the standardized calcs. I use the HydroCAD system. It's like the state-of-the-art out there and what most towns and cities are using, and I'll submit that to the engineering department. And I think I'll probably even be downsizing the system. That's my honest opinion, but we'll see after we finish up the calcs. And that follows with the about the fifth item here. The applicant's narrative states the drain is designed to contain all water on site. That's what we hope for because of the perk rates. But we have to design up to a 100-year storm, and I feel if anything, if it ever went beyond that type of storm, then we always provide an overflow to the abutting drainage system, which does tie into your sewer system because the city of Lowell is a combined system. I think everybody knows that we really have no alternative to throw it off to a separate drain system. You have to go into the drain system that goes into your sewer system. And Mr. Mayo, Ms. DeMayo, I should say, or Mrs., this will not be allowed without proof of the need. The need is, it's the only system there, and it's a safety buffer. It's just something we always put into the systems. Every system I've designed for the city of Lowell, they've allowed us before to tie into the abutting drainage system or catch basin that overflows, doesn't overflow, it goes into your city sewer system. It's not something where we want the system to react with, but it's something that's the only system out there. So that's the need. It's merely an overflow in case it backed up. If you had one of those oddball storms that went beyond a 100-year storm, then we have an outlet. And I feel it may even be possible to design that the entire runoff does stay on site. I had one recently just over right at the line and Chelmsford-Lowell line, same area, Middlesex Street, Upper Middlesex Street. The overflow from 100 feet was less than 1 foot per second. So we get real low runoffs when we use these type of systems. So I'm hoping she still she being Mrs. DeMayo still allows us to tie in because it's just a safety factor that we incorporate in. Our contours have been, one of the other items was the contours was left off the plan. I apologize on the first one. If you're familiar with the AutoCAD, they're layered systems. There's one for contours, there's one for drainage, there's one for this. I think when I printed it up, that layer was shut off, and we let the plan go without the contours on. They've been added, or brought up. They were always there, we just brought them back up. Make sure they got printed onto your, it's very flat, by the way, that area. It's not an extremely sloping area. I don't think there's much more than a foot or so over the entire area on difference in elevations. So on the contours on the plan, you'll see them at half-foot increments. Usually we got them at 2 foot, but because it's so flat, we thought the engineers could see it better if we put in the half-foot increments. And I think that rounds up most of my presentation. Let me just look and see if there was any other item. Oh, there was one more item. It was that, I think it's the water department probably here, needs to see the size of the water line. And we will have that by the middle of this week. I'm not sure who signed this. Our water utility. So whoever is in charge of water utilities wanted to know the size of the line. We will get that from them, in fact. So. There was one more comment from Mr. Gomes, transportation engineer. You need more detail in the driveways. I think I provided. Hopefully that answers this question. There's two entrances that are shown, 25 foot. There's a detail off to the side. I don't have the plan in front of me, but I believe it was the left side of one of those plans. Shows a detail of the driveway areas with specific gutter grades and back of sidewalk grades. Off-site snow removal too, I guess, was an issue. There is a note on the plan that they would take it off, so I think if and when the plan gets approved, then that would be a stipulation of the plan, or a note directly on the plan. It's already there. And I'll entertain any other questions from the board.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Close. Mr. Hall, do you have anybody else who wants to speak on behalf of the applicant?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. At this point in time, then, I'll turn it over to anybody like to, for the public hearing. Anybody would like to speak in favor of this project? Anyone like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. This time I'll turn it over to any of the board members who have any questions or concerns. So just one question. So you're gonna have access coming in on both Wood Street and Middlesex Street, right?
Yes.
Like the way it is now, you have it coming in both ways? Yes. Okay, just wanna make sure. I believe that wasn't the plan, and I think one of the other things, Mr. Close, that you did put on the new plan that we had in the packet, I think that came from the building department, which was one would be, the applicant should also include a chart for the parking, and I believe you did that in the new plan. It shows the parking chart, where all the new parking spaces will be.
On the, yes, on the Board of Appeals plan,
Right.
we set it up for that, that parking was noted.
Okay. And then it did say the use would be limited because of the parking. Okay, so basically, as Attorney Hall said earlier, depending on what type of tenants you get in there will dictate to how much parking spaces will be in regards to, and they'll be under the control of the, to get the building permits.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Right, okay. So it looks like now you have a total of 19 spaces, and what was called upon was 15, depending on what your mix of tenants will be. Correct?
That's if we have service and retail, it'll be 15.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So at this point in time, I'll turn over, any of the board members have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mr. Vishak, go right ahead, please.
Mr. Close, I know you did a good job addressing a lot of the concerns that went in here, but I just have a question. This is a highly visible location, and it's actually a key cornerstone lot in that intersection. And I don't know if you looked at all at 6.1.9 of the city's building zoning code regarding the landscape open space relative to the parking, and that, just to give you a little background as to why that's in there as well, it was really to try to get away from a lot of the retail development that took place in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. And I think you described this lot with pavement and building, and this is going to be, from a visual standpoint, this is going to be a highly visible spot. This is a great opportunity to obviously improve it, what you're looking to do here, but it's a great opportunity to take advantage of some of the things that we wanted to incorporate into development relative to landscaped areas. So if you could, I really would like to see somehow what was intended to have in here incorporated into the plan. And I'm wondering if you even looked at that, and if you have any comments on that, please.
Yes, just on the southerly lot line, we included, instead of putting a fence up there, we put I indicate shrubs.
Right.
But we left it open to, we knew the board would review it if you want trees and a combination of shrubs. And I do have some area up front that is at the curve itself where Wood Street and Middlesex Street come together. There's some areas in there that we could possibly put some trees in if the board requests it.
Aaron, if I could have a clarification on the buffer, 5-foot buffer, that, unless I'm reading this wrong, based on 6.1.9, we're looking at within 50 feet of having some shade trees or ornamental trees.
Yeah, that's correct.
To kind of break up that impervious surface, that look of pavement and building.
Yeah, 6.1.9 really.
I think you had a square footage requirement.
It refers to landscaping within the parking lot area, it's not necessarily a buffer requirement. It has to do with landscaping in the parking lot. There's a percentage of square footage that's required, but also a distance requirement, a minimum of 50 feet between trees. And the idea is that the landscaping isn't just kind of huddled on one side of the lot, that it's dispersed throughout the parking lot to reduce the impact of the pervious surface. So really the comment, when I looked at the plan, it looks like the area that you've included in the site within the parking lot is sufficient. It has more to do with the distance between the trees. You've got them kind of at the north and southern portion, but those are about 100 feet apart. And the requirement in the zoning code is 50 feet. So I think that's what.
So you're saying you'd like some more trees in between? Is that it? I think there's again, the plan's not in front of me, but there's an area that shows 2 to 3 trees on the northerly end, and of course across the southerly lot line.
I think that's, so it's 100 feet apart.
Yes, okay, so if it necessitates it, then we'll add some more trees. That's an item that we can easily address.
We'd be looking at some sort of a landscape island breaking up
Yes.
that's really what I would.
I'll break up some of those parking areas and put a landscape island in. And
that's what I would, yeah, and that was the intent of that 6.1.9. And that would at least address that particular issue. And again, it helps to soften that look.
Sure. All right, so I'll keep that in mind. I'll go back to the drawing board and add some trees with landscape island.
Because then I would like to see how that interacts with the parking configuration as well, so.
Sure.
So that's all I have at the moment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bichette. Anybody else at this time?
I have a couple of questions.
Mr. Lockhart, if you would, please.
Some of the documentation that I'm looking at indicates that you have one loading dock on site. For I
I'm
assume
not really
truck
sure on the building
deliveries.
design itself. One loading dock on the building design?
Got that right here.
The only thing I've seen is a dumpster.
I'm reading, it just says the development will provide for 20 parking spaces and 1 loading dock as per plan. There's no loading dock then.
Whose comment was that, please? I'd just like to look at
Well,
it.
it's on the application.
New to me, the loading dock.
That was part of the narrative on the application that
Yeah,
may not have
on the
been
build-out
put on the
narrative.
plan.
Okay, again, we'll have to address that. I'm really not sure where that loading dock, I didn't include it in the plan itself.
Well, I know you can't see it, and my question really is, if you do have a loading dock, how does that
Sure.
impact the parking? And what
Right.
kind of turning radius do you need? And that's kind of a big question on the lot.
Sure.
If you have one, if it's not on the plan, then you gotta have it there.
We'll address it, that's all I can say. I'm not really sure where that loading dock was intended. That would be more of an architectural thing?
Mr. Hall, can we ask through the applicant if he plans to put a loading dock in, or if that was just typed in an error by any chance? or-
Yeah, what is,
Okay,
I think there was intention to have one, and I think it was removed from the
okay.
everything's gonna be serviced from the front doors? Is that right? Okay.
Let me just say that no one indicated to me to include it in my plan. If it was something that's, they thought about, maybe it was in the architectural stage, and they didn't put it forward that way.
Okay. My
So there is, at this stage, there's no loading dock, is that?
I guess there's no loading dock, if that's,
We'll revise that application to indicate it then. I'll put an amendment into the application. Are we gonna amend the
let's get
application?
an answer to that.
Okay.
It's not on the plan, he said that. It's right there. Okay. I don't know what we're gonna have to require there, but
We'll type up an amendment and send it to the,
Yeah, I mean,
The
what it
board.
says just on the narrative, so when it says that the parking and loading comply, with zoning, the development will provide for 20 parking spaces and 1 loading dock as per plan, so I don't see on the plan,
it's
so.
not on the plan, he indicated
So-
that.
all right, no,
Most
I
likely you
didn't,
don't
I know
plan-
I didn't put
So
one on
you
there.
are gonna incorporate a loading dock into this, is that?
No,
Okay,
he's not.
No,
No,
There's no loading
all
dock.
right, no loading dock,
so we'll scratch that as per the narrative.
right, so that should be revised. Secondly, I just wanna comment, it's been brought up on a very visible corner here. And I would encourage you to work with, in fact, I would make it a condition of approval to work with the Department of Planning and Developing landscape engineer
sure,
to really make that look as nice as
Sure.
possible.
yeah, well, I think
That's very important there.
the
It
gentleman
really
got that
look
point,
nice.
Mr. Fischett.
Got great potential.
That's really what I was, meant when I said that we'll add them in. I'm obviously gonna go to the planning and/or engineers, whoever handles that, to find out what they require, or what they'd like.
Yeah. And signage too. I noticed there's one spot for a sign that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other signs on that corner?
Because currently you have one on Middlesex Street that says the beauty salon, right?
Yes, there is a sign there already.
Yeah.
So will
Right.
that come down and will they put up a new sign? Because I know that beauty salon is gonna be taken out of there, and then your new development, hopefully they'll go in there. So you'll
right,
probably put
they'll-
up some new signage, whatever other type of tenants you get in there with that new salon, or
That's
the name
correct.
changes, or whoever else may go in there.
Right, we're gonna look at that sign and then adjust it to whatever the new...
Okay.
It's gonna have a name, first of all, whatever the plaza's name is. And then,
All right, well, again there, work with DPD
And
and,
then usually after you have the
Sure.
plaza name,
On
you
the
might list the
specification.
tenants down below and what their specialties are.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Mr.
that's
Lockhart.
all I have, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Mr. Genman, any questions, concerns?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just I was a little confused by the plan. It says in our narrative here that it's 5 storefronts.
Yes.
Is that true? And just looking at the plan, it looks, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like 6 different,
There's an-
units
oh.
here.
Maybe perhaps it was worded wrong. There is a current business there, the
Okay.
salon.
Okay.
And they're going in, I think what we're trying to say is 5 new ones? Just 5. Just 5 in all?
Just 5?
So you have the beauty salon plus 4 more? Okay.
Okay, so maybe it's just, I see 4 that go along Wood Street. 1, 2, 3, 4 units along Wood Street. And then is the 5th one, this entire section here, the beauty salon?
Right, there was a line, I'm not sure if you're looking at, is it possible the existing lot line overlaps and looks like a new, we tried to show
Possibly.
the old lots
Do you
there
want,
too.
do you want to come over here and
Yeah.
just point it out to me? So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6. Is this a 6th one here?
Yes. These units are probably supposed to be a little bit bigger.
Oh, so there's maybe only 3 here along Wood Street?
I would think so.
Okay,
I'll adjust this plan to indicate, they're just gonna have 5,
okay,
you know.
okay.
It may have been my interpretation, of 5, not the existing.
You thought it was an additional 5,
Mr.
okay.
Close, is this what you're referring to here? This one here?
That's 5,
Put
clearly.
a layout, see how you have,
Looking at the,
Yeah, that unit 4 is,
okay, I'm just looking at the plan that you handed
I
out
mean, there's one
tonight.
out there that might help just a little bit.
right. I'll adjust that plan to reflect,
Okay,
When are you showing that one? Mr. Close?
those areas.
Yeah, showing that one.
So the old design. I really hadn't seen this design. to tell
I
you the
see.
truth.
Yeah, so I think you're right, these ones look like they're a little larger
Right.
than they are reflected here, so, okay. That clears it up for me, thanks.
All right, but again, my interpretation, I thought we had 5 in the existing.
Additional, right.
This clears it up for me, so.
So, and I also want to echo the comments of my colleagues here regarding the visibility of this site and how important it is to not only comply with 6.1.9 in the code regarding, the tree islands, but also, if there's anything can be done, I'm thinking, and the landscape architect can help you with this, but along the sidewalk or something like that, maybe some kind of a grass buffer or something like that, so that it just takes the shock of the pavement away as people come into the city and come in over the Rourke Bridge there. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing I wanted to bring up is the parking. I think it's especially important in this site to maintain ample parking. We all know how busy this intersection is and how crowded it is all around this area. And I think to skimp on the parking would be a mistake. And part of the problem there is that without knowing what type of establishments are in here, right, we can't tell whether or not this is going to fit the parking zoning code. I have a question, Aaron, for you. Can we restrict use? Can we, in the granting of the special permit, restrict the type of uses that can be, put into the site?
Well, this is just for site plan review, but that is essentially done at the building permit stage with the Inspectional Services Department.
Mhm.
And I talked with Bob Camacho, the building commissioner, about this process. And apparently what they do is when they have a project such as this where there's commercial condos, units in one building, They will write an official letter to the applicant saying that, you know, you are restricted by the tenant mix, and that as you lease out the different spaces, you may be restricting your ability to lease out that final unit if you've
Right.
already exceeded, your parking limit. So they'll hold an occupancy permit if the
I see.
parking wasn't.
So the building department will deal with that as, you know, they apply for tenants?
Correct. Because
Okay.
as it gets built out, as they start leasing out the space, they'll have to go for occupancy permits.
Right.
And so the building department will know what kind of uses are being in there, and they will have that calculation.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, looking at it now, with the square footage that you have, you required 15 spaces for retail and service, which is the least restrictive of the parking requirements. You know, you add one takeout restaurant in there, and you're probably going to max out or over, possibly even go over the parking requirement. So it's going to be very restrictive to what can be put in here. And if you're going to add a landscape island, something like that, now you're probably going to affect the parking again. So you have very minimal parking now for even a retail and service type of operation. So just a concern that I wanted to raise.
Thank you. So basically, understand what you're saying, Mr. Close, is depending on what you get for tenants, we'll decide. how
Yes,
many
sir.
uses So if you put in say if you put in 3 units to max out, then you can't put in the other 2. So obviously, that's a business decision you have to make when you decide what type of tenants come on the site. Because then if you have 3 of them all ready to go, then you go for get the occupancy permit for the other 2, and they're already framed and everything else, then they're not gonna give them to you. So just, obviously, you're gonna keep that in mind when you select your tenants, I mean, and they won't give it to you. That's totally the call of the permanent authority, so. That's what you have to work with once you start putting people in those. So just be aware of those and, when you're selecting your tenants. So,
Chairman Lenehan,
Sure.
if I might,
Go ahead,
going back to the loading requirements, looking at the zoning code, actually, for any kind of retail trade or commercial space, from 5 to 50,000 square feet, it does require 1 loading bay. So this is a 7,500 square foot commercial building, so it looks like the code would require that you have a loading space.
Would that be per unit or for the building as a total?
The way I read it is for the total building.
It doesn't make sense to me to have 1 loading bay that's gonna serve
Right.
1 commercial unit in a 5-unit building.
Yeah,
It
it
just,
does
you know,
make sense.
Right.
it would seem to me a loading dock for a building that's over 7,500 square feet makes sense if that's the entire rental unit. But if there's 5 separate units, you're not gonna have 1 loading bay for each one.
Yeah, that does
code
make more
section you're
sense.
referring
but
to, Aaron?
It's
That-
section
That may not apply to
6.2.4.
retail,
Six
though.
what, I'm sorry?
Well, it's
Joe's
section
right.
6.2.
Let me take a quick peek at it.
Yeah, Joe's right. That doesn't make sense. It's impractical.
Okay, yeah. Any question about this? This talks about the 6.2.
No,
Yeah. And then it goes on, breaks it up down here. Number of bays required.
I mean, it makes sense to me. If you have a larger building, you want a loading dock because, you know, you're gonna have a lot to load. But you have relatively small units here. I don't see where a loading dock is gonna help any of these units. They're gonna be bringing their stuff through the front door.
Okay. Okay, I'll go with you. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Claremont? Any concerns? Have we raised that issue?
Couple of, yeah. Were you done?
Yeah, they said they were complete, I believe. I'm sorry.
All right, just a couple of minor things. One, I agree with my colleagues that this is a wonderful opportunity to dress up this area, so I'd really be looking forward to seeing this completed and done in a nice fashion, as I know you will. Just a couple of points that were raised, and I'll just briefly touch on them. The dumpster should be adequately screened from the street. I see that the dumpster is there. There is some screening. I'm not sure what you anticipate using for the screening, or if that's been determined.
I believe it was a chain link fence with the
Opaque
vinyl
slats.
vinyl
Yeah.
slats. We can put that on the plan, too. I think we just didn't indicate it. We showed the screening, but
You've already indicated the fence that you'll be constructing will be a stockade fence to screen that portion of it.
right on the easterly lot line.
Right. It's always nice to have additional landscaping, and certainly I'd hope that you could work with the DPD's landscape people if there is some additional landscaping that can be added to this plan. The landscape island is wonderful, but if it's going to cause you to lose any parking, I wouldn't be in favor of it, because I think you have to maximize the parking. You've got some landscaping here behind the dumpster. You show some landscaping tree-wise in the lot itself. And the lot's not an overly huge lot, but if you could work it out where you get some additional trees and landscaping without sacrificing the parking, I think that's critical.
Certainly.
You'd certainly want to leave at least the 19 spaces, because if you're going to rent to retail and service, you're going to need a minimum of 15. And if you rent to other businesses, you might need a little more, so you don't want to box yourself in. So that'd be my comment in that regard. But I have no other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Basically, I echo basically the concerns of all the board members, is try to beautify the landscaping up there, and also the question with the parking. I see, as Mr. Close has indicated, you would remove the snow off the site, and obviously that helps, gives you the more parking, gives you the landscaping. I mean, I know if it's minimal snow, it's not a big issue, but when it starts to pile up, and then when you plow it, you do miss those parking spaces. And obviously, if your tenants can't get people into their businesses because there's no place to park, because really parking on the street out there doesn't work on Middlesex Street or on Wood Street. So basically, I'd go along with, improving the landscaping. As Mr. Claremont said, I'm not as concerned about the loading dock as well as he said. If it was a big development where you had, going into one unit, have it, but when you have 5 different small ones, places like a beauty salon, most of that stuff is gonna be by a regular car, or maybe a small caravan or some type of beauty products of that nature. I don't see you carrying in anything really heavy there. Once the salon is established, when they put in the big product that they need for the hair drying and that to take, their booth or whatever else, but most of the deliveries, and depending on what type of people you get in there, if it's in a attorney's office, you don't have a lot of big deliveries, except for maybe your copy paper and your copy machine, that's probably about it most of the time, or what other type of tenants you might get. So really, the loading dock's not an issue for me, but I think if you can, like they say, pick up the landscape on there, what is a big intersection in the city, if you can pick up some other landscape and keeping in mind the parking ratio, and those would be my concerns as well. I think the main things were, trying to get much open space you can get on there, the landscaping on there, taking off the snow off the site to maximize that, you get all the parking in there. And then obviously, when you put up your signage, wherever you decide to put that, and then maybe you can decorate that sometimes. Sometimes they do the wall sign, when they decorate that as well. So you can keep the landscape idea in that, where you're gonna put it, or if you're gonna put it out towards the corner of Middlesex Street and Wood Street, so whether you want it visible from the corner, or whether you wanna put one on Middlesex Street as well as Wood Street, sometimes you can beautify that with some type of landscape as well, depending on where I'm sure you wanna put some advertisement on there, so those, tenants that you pick up, it'll be visible, so people will be able to say, these people work here, so I can pull in here if that's the type of service I need. So if you keep that in mind when you do your sign, you might want to add some landscape around that as well. But basically, I have no other further questions in regards to that. Any of the board members have any further questions?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just one other question. As I'm looking at where the dumpster is, there's a driveway leading up to it. That's just to access the dumpster, that driveway?
That's correct.
That's all it's for. Yeah. There might be an opportunity there. I mean, if you had an employee or two parked back there, understanding they'd have to move whenever you have to empty that dumpster, but if you need a couple additional spaces, perhaps that's a place we could stick an employee or two. Just the thought.
Yeah, I mean, like, say if you have like the owner of the beauty salon, they could park there, and free up more parking for your tenants, I mean, for your, your customers. And then if that has to be moved, because depending on your type of businesses, how often the dumpster be emptied, usually they're a couple times a week. And then, whatever time they come, that person can always move the car, or if it came before or after hours even. It's just an option.
Yeah, I just didn't add it because
Right.
I think that would have been picked right up.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Engineering, planning.
sure. They would say, it's it's blocking your
They
dumpster.
say you can't park there, there's a dumpster there.
Right. So usually you put in no parking, and then the owner parks there, something of that nature. So, you wouldn't have your, reserved spot or something like that if you're looking to pick up the other spot. Because that comes through this way, right? Yeah. Anything else, Mr. Feinberg? No?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a couple comments. And I can tell you, I've spent a lot of time looking at why some of these small plazas succeed and why they don't. And sometimes less is more. And sometimes small businesses, the reason they don't do well and there's turnover is because they can't expand, whether it be through the parking, whether it be through the square footage itself. And it's something to consider when you're looking at the mix of units. And obviously, that's a choice you have. But as you try to incorporate, I'm a really feel very strongly about the landscape requirements for the parking area. And especially, this is just a key site. This is great. This is a super site. I mean, you've got, talk about traffic count and visibility. But it's also, we've spent a lot of time building documents in the city to address streetscape and how the appearance of these buildings look, and it has a lot to say with people coming into the city. It has a lot to say with pride in the neighborhood, and I mean, it goes on and on, the implications that has, the architectural design, the landscape design. So I really want to see the requirements of 6.1.9 in here. Now, I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I feel very strongly about that. And again, looking at your mixture of parking and the concern, and I understand because that is a busy location, and I can tell you a good example is there's a similar strip mall right on Pawtucket Boulevard where Westminster Apartments are, and cars are parking on the Westminster Drive where the condos are in the back because you can't park on the boulevard. And businesses kind of rotate in and out in some spots, and it's very difficult. So you're in a tough spot. You pull in over there, and if you can't pull in, you're not going to park on Wood Street. You're not going to park on Middlesex Street. So it certainly presents a challenge. So again, I think less may be more in this case, and businesses will have a better opportunity to succeed and thrive in that plaza if it's not crammed in there and have too many businesses, but that's just a comment for something to think about. But having said that, Mr. Chairman, I really would like the board to entertain a motion to continue so that we could have the plan come back to us with the requirements of 6.1.9. I just think this is a key site. I think the neighborhood deserves to have that incorporated into that, and so I certainly would like to make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman. I think the plan tonight reflects 6 units instead of 5. I understand that was an oversight. That could also be updated and adjusted. So I think there's enough additional information that we need to kind of get a really good feel for it, where a continuance would be warranted, in my opinion.
For discussion, Aaron, do you mind if I ask you a question? By looking at the site as we have now, I know they're going to try to come back and change it. If we make a recommendation for DPD to work with the applicant for the landscape, now obviously you had the opportunity to look these plans over. Do you feel there's ways you can beautify the landscape to pick up more open space by looking at the plan?
Yeah, there's some areas I think where there's opportunities. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and draw them out, but I think there's some opportunity to add landscaping and some trees, perhaps without losing parking spaces, to really reach the requirement of 6.1.9. We may have to add a landscape island in there somewhere. But I think there are some alternatives that can be tried, especially with getting the landscape architect involved. perhaps, like, that was mentioned, I can't remember which board member mentioned it, but perhaps a grass buffer between the sidewalk.
Yeah, I think that was Mr. Jedman, right?
That's something we may be able to look at.
Stuff like that makes it.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, just to beautify the site, let's, you know, to see what your input is and how you feel. If that's something that's workable at this point, I know Division of Planning and Development is always willing to try to help in the landscape design.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to see what your feedback would be on that, just as an observation since we all mentioned it, I figured. And a lot of it would be, you know, to work with DPD for landscape planning, so I figured, obviously, if we could ask you some input now, if you had any feelings, since you already had a chance to review the plan, if you had that ability to, if they were telling you to work with them, and you think, well, there's a few things we can do, but not too much, at least we have an idea. If you feel that we can work on the site, that gives us some positive, you know, feedback in regards to landscape.
You're just looking at this roughly, I mean, on the parallel parking spaces here that are parallel to Wood Street, it appears that you could place an island at the north and south of them and add trees. It looks like there's enough space there just to add trees.
Okay.
That may be enough in of itself. What it does to circulation, we need to take a closer look at, but just roughly looking at
I
it
was
now.
already working it up here.
Right?
Well, it's good to
You
think,
can
to
work
see you on
on
the
it.
same page, literally, you know, to try to beautify the site.
That would be the area I would go to myself,
Okay.
so.
Right.
Okay. I know there's been a motion, it's been second, and we had discussion. Any further discussion?
One item.
Yes.
please. Outside lighting, do you plan any outside lighting in the parking area? I mean, on the corner there?
Right, we have them attached to the building, shining down into the parking area. The outside
Outside
lighting.
yeah.
Well,
So
All right,
that'd be
that should-
facing
that
back
should
into the
be-
parking
That
lot.
should be included on your documentation.
If you look at the building itself, you'll see, I think over in the legend, it says, shows an item for lighting. Those are shown just attached to the building, that type of lighting that are angled down right onto the parking lot.
Okay.
But there was no intention to put outside poles.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
that's
So mostly, yeah, on the structures, facing the parking lot, facing down. so
Yes.
No light bothers any of
Right,
the
with,
adjacent businesses.
attached to the
neighbors.
building itself underneath the overhang.
That's all.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor, and second, to continue the matter to see if there could be some work on the 6.9 for the landscaping plan.
Is 2 weeks sufficient to bring the plan back?
Sure,
or-
yep.
Because we meet 2 weeks, you know, the first and the third Mondays of the month. So our next meeting would be 2 weeks from tonight, which is
17th?
March 17th, if that's enough time, Mr. Close. If not, we can put it on for the following meeting.
March 17th?
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day,
You don't
yeah,
have
we'll
any,
be
you
here.
don't have any plans, do you?
If not, I think the next meeting, you got that St. Patrick's Day, huh? Yeah, we anticipate a big agenda then.
There is, there's about 4 items.
If not, the following meeting would be the Monday, which is April
No,
7th,
for the 17th is fine.
okay? If not, April 7th is the
That is not-
following one, depending on how much time you need for the plans, whichever. Let me just back up a little bit. Alan, if they were to come in and meet with you, would that be enough time for you to adequately make comments for them to comment on?
Yeah, it shouldn't take too long. I mean,
Okay, I don't want to put you in a box and them in a box and have you come in here in 2 weeks and then ask for another week if you need more time, counsel. That'd be a
Right,
request.
we'll try to schedule with Plan and Development
Okay,
for some time, whatever's convenient to them.
because, I mean, most of the plan, I think, you know, most of the issues, the main issue is the landscaping. I mean, I think if that's what you're limited to, it shouldn't be too much further detail in the plan. You know, that, and obviously we've addressed most of the other issues, and you've addressed most of the other issues that we got from department heads. So the main thing would be the landscaping, and usually, I'm sure you know better than I do, just adding the landscape to the plan is probably less work than a lot of the other stuff you've already had to do. So when it comes to fine tuning it, just be a matter of changing a few things, and, you know, whether you want to meet with Aaron first, or at least you two have a little idea of which direction to pick up that open space. Okay, so if that's the case, I'll entertain a motion that we continue it to the next meeting, which is March 17th.
So moved.
So moved. So the motion has been made that we continue, so now we'll put it on for that date. All in favor for March 17th date?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Matters continued to March 17th. Good luck.
One question, do
Sure.
you usually put out a list of the outstanding items?
That we want done?
Right.
No, basically on this here, the main concern that the board wants is the landscaping
Right,
plan.
I
Yeah. So
certainly
anything
remember
else
that.
that you have, some of the things that we touched on tonight that you say you might adopt in the plan?
And signage,
Yeah. if you
Right,
wanna
the
put some of that
units,
in.
the size of units, the...
Yeah, and then
right.
basically, you know, if you want to consider, where you might put your sign in, because that may fall into
Mm-hmm.
landscape.
Yeah, we can talk about
All at the same
kind of the
time.
overall
Right.
issues that we just discussed tonight with
All right, so I'll
landscaping
schedule with
being-
the plan and
Yeah,
development.
and then we'll see that then, okay?
We'll address them.
Thank you. So see you on March 17th. Yeah, that's, I mean, if you
yeah,
do a
they
nice
should
one,
do
you know,
something
if you do a
nice
nice,
like that.
nice sign, you can do something
Nice sign
landscaping,
like
you know?
that, yeah. Brick or something.
Okay. Okay, that concludes our public hearings. Moving along, we have a pre-application session. These are matters that are requested to be on the planning board for preliminary review. These will later come before the planning board if the applicant so desires for a public hearing.
Thing over there, John.
The planning board renders no decision or no guarantees on future decisions. This is here for feedback from the applicant requested and review from the planning board. And the matter we have for tonight's consideration is the project is, address is 760 Merrimack Street. The applicant is Coalition for a Better Acre. The project is residential conversion. The zoning is urban mixed use, and this will require a future public hearing for a site plan. May we hear the case for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 81 Bridge Street, representing the Coalition for Better Acre. With me tonight is Madeline Nash from the Coalition, and also John Winslow from Winslow Architects, who was our architect on the project. I think you three sat when we came in with the old St. Joseph Elementary School. I don't think Jerry and Steve were on the board at that time, but this is a very similar project. This is the former St. Joseph's High School at 760 Merrimack Street. And the Coalition has it under agreement from the Catholic Charities. And what they want to do with this building is very similar to what they did on Moody Street, is do a complete historic renovation of the building. They want to establish 22 residential units, all to be affordable. In addition to 760 Merrimack Street, the site includes 20 Decatur Avenue and 117 Salem Street. I think you can see the parking lot that went to the high school in the back. The 22 units would be, there would be 8 three-bedroom units, 8 two-bedroom units, and 6 one-bedroom units. And the unit breakdown is really driven by the location of the windows in the building, so we can, you know, make them all match. We'll be back to this board on site plan review. We will have to go to the Board of Appeals if we get past this board for a couple of variances on parking. We only have 22 parking spaces. This zone requires 2 per dwelling unit. We don't have it. But like the one on Moody Street, I think with the type of residents we intend to put in here, the need isn't there for 2 per unit. Also, we'll need a variance for land area per dwelling unit. We're a little shy. We need 22,000 square feet. We're about 20,550 for the whole development. And also, some of the units will be below the size required. But like I said, we intend to preserve the existing features of the building, try to keep it, you know, promote the neighborhood, keep it the same design. And I think we're in here to get some input from this board if they have any suggestions. I'm going to turn it over to John to go over the design of the building, and then we can discuss other things that this board would be interested in on our final site plan. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Jim. Does this work? Yeah, great.
If the green light's on, hopefully it's working.
Yes, okay. Not even St. Patty's Day, it's green already. Thank you. My name is John Winslow, Winslow Architects. I think the last time I met with you, we were in grammar school. We were talking about the St. Joe's Grammar School, and I'm happy to say that that's well underway. So we've graduated, and we're now talking about the high school. As Jim indicated, it's, and as you all know, it's an historic existing building. And to be renovated into affordable housing, all kinds of funds get piggybacked as much as possible, one of which would be low-income tax credits and historic tax credits, so that we're going to be, among other things, governed by the Historic Commission as to what we can or cannot do, certainly with the exterior of the building. And it's a very handsome building, so it's pretty easy for me to stand up here and say to you that we're going to be maintaining this building, we're going to be restoring the building, we will not allowed even if we wanted to, and frankly we don't want to. We're not changing window patterns, we're not changing window heights. And so from the exterior, it's what you see is not as good as what you're going to get because it's going to be cleaned up, but it's essentially what you have. I only have 2 easels, so I'm going to show you this overall survey and then go to a larger plan. I believe you have a handout that we did that's basically a smaller version of this. As you know, the building sits right on Merrimack Street itself, which is here. The parking is in the rear, accessed by Decatur Avenue and Decatur Street. Decatur Street runs between Salem and Merrimack. So the parking will be coming in through Decatur, and then it enlarges to an area. It's currently a vacant open lot, or it's actually a compilation of lots, onto which we'll be providing 22 parking spaces. So I'm going to take this down, and this is a larger scale of the plan itself, and we've reoriented. Now Merrimack Street is here, Decatur Street is here, and Decatur Avenue is here. We've put together what we think is a sensitive parking plan. We've put in as many spaces as we reasonably can. We would appreciate feedback. We were well aware of things that we need to address, such as where does snow go, lighting, those kind of things. And I'm not really here tonight to make a presentation with that answer, but to say that, that's probably an area that we want to discuss. The building very conveniently lays out with an entry, obviously in the front and a center hallway, so it does allow itself to be kind of accessed from front and back pretty much equally. So we're not having to go through a lot of hoops to kind of have parking back here and get into the building. So to the extent that people go from their car to the building, it's an immediate access, and of course people who are coming from the street, there's an immediate access in the front. I don't know if you want me to get all into the floor plans. You probably don't, but just I'll say generically that what we're doing, we're putting an elevator in the building. There will be handicap accessibility issues. The building, the only inconvenient part about it actually is it does sit a little bit above the sidewalk. It's 2 steps up, and 2 steps is a lot in the handicap accessibility world. So we're actually proposing to drop the floor so it actually is at sidewalk level rather than dealing with a ramp up front. Although I'd have to say that this is still being pursued. Like the grammar school, both these schools present one issue, which is their first floor is quite a bit below grade. And so we're bringing the floor up anyway because the windows on the lower floor are up at 5 feet. And so what we did at the grammar schools, we brought the floor up, and we'll be doing the same here. So given that, it seemed to be, well, why not bring it up so it's right level with the sidewalk and deal with the ramp issue? So we think we can do that. And so there's an elevator, a central corridor. The first floor will have community space on it for the facility itself. And there are 4 units on the first floor, and then on the upper floors there's 6 units per floor. So there's 3 floors of 6 units. That's 18 units, and then there's 4 on the first floor, so that's a total of 22 units. As Jim said, we're to a certain extent dictated by the windows. I mean, you can't, you obviously have to have at a minimum 1 window per every bedroom and preferably more. So fortunately they laid out reasonably well so that it almost told us what to do. I mean, we haven't had to go through a lot of hoops to make these floor plans work the way they're working, and they work reasonably well. I think, as Jim mentioned or will mention, we're aware that there's a minimum unit size that is giving us an issue on one of the units that we may have to address. The units are decent size. The one bedrooms are 650 to 750 square feet. The two bedrooms are 850 to 900 square feet. The three bedrooms are like 1,200 square feet. So they're fairly generous sized units. That's, I think maybe I'll stop there. That's what's being proposed, and I'm happy to say that we can stand here before you with the experience of the grammar school. So we know it can be done. We're well aware of the difficulties of piggybacking all the financing to pull it off, which is what Madeline and Coalition for Better Acre does. And, you know, we can make it fit in that budget. And it's always a push and pull, but we've got there in the grammar school, and I'd like to think we'll get there with this. So,
I think the only thing I want to add is that these units will be primarily for residents of the acre, like the last one was. So that's why I think as far as the parking is concerned, there's not that real concern or that need for that many parking. But we are going to make them for people in the acre that need this type of residence, like we did on the other school.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I...
Sure.
if I may?
Mr. Fischett?
Just if, unless my rule is wrong, if you, that smaller parking area there, if you just turn those parking, instead of having kitty corner, just straight in, I think you pick up 2 more parking spots. Not straight in to the side, facing down from this direction here.
this way.
Yes, yeah.
You might pick up one. I would agree if the you know, we know we're not going to get 2.2 spaces per.
Right.
Right. So the goal was to get a parking space for every unit. So we got 22. I think we could push this around, and I think your scale's probably right. We could probably get 23, maybe 24.
Yeah, you can get a couple.
We are aware that snow is always an issue. So we've left ourselves a little room here. I wouldn't want to stand before you, and I'm happy to actually not stand before you to say we can squeeze this thing dry with every single space. But I think your scale's absolutely right. So if that's the direction that the feedback goes, I think we probably can get a couple more spaces in here.
Now, I heard a couple people mention dumpsters.
Dumpsters, we need a spot for
Where,
dumpsters.
have you placed that anywhere on the thing?
We haven't really addressed the hard issues of dumpsters, snow. Lighting doesn't show here, but dumpsters will be an issue, and that's why we like to leave ourselves a little bit of room
Okay.
at this level.
No, fair enough.
Isn't there another parking lot on the bottom of the drawing?
Down here?
To the left of the front of the building off of Merrimack Street?
That's a private lot.
That belongs to the,
Private lot.
That's Brian McGowan's, that goes with the church, Rich.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. That goes with the church.
All right, I didn't remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
I think what we did the last time, I think we had 15 units, correct? And we had 13 parking spaces, and it didn't seem to be a problem whatsoever. But we do realize we have to place a dumpster in here. We have an issue of snow storage, although we can always remove it if we have to. But those are some of the issues we have to face. But we wanted some guidance if there's anything else that you could.
You gonna impact the St. Joseph's Hall, that other building at all? Or what's
There's one
gonna
right
happen?
next to it.
Yeah.
It's vacant.
It's,
It's vacant. We have talked to Brian McGowan, who
He owns
acquired the parish hall as part of the church
Yeah.
transaction. And, you know, the parish hall is really not in great shape. Doesn't have much value. I think, you know, Brian isn't sure what he's going to do with that site. But, you know, it's close. I think they were originally on one lot, and then they were subdivided. There's about 8 feet distance between the two buildings. At this point in time, it's not part of anything that we have any control over. So it's under his control.
so the rationale right now is at least you've got 1 spot per unit, yeah. Okay.
And, you know, like Jim mentioned, of the 22 units, 6 are 1-bedroom units. And of those, 3 are going to be set aside for very low-income households and people with 30% of the area median income. And what we find is that households with that kind of income really can't afford to own and maintain a car, unfortunately. So I think that, you know, realistically, we're not going to have every household owning a car. So we will work with this site plan and try to maximize the number of spaces, try to accommodate, well, obviously we need to accommodate a dumpster, think through the lighting and the snow storage. What we wanted to show was that we can at least accomplish one space per unit, and we really do feel that not every household is going to have a car.
Is Decatur Avenue still, that's a public way owned by the city?
Private way.
It's a private way.
Private way, yeah.
Who owns it?
The abutters, all the abutters in Decatur Avenue, always to be kept open.
It looks like it hadn't traveled in 100 years.
It ends at our, at our.
Oh, it does, all right,
I mean,
so
it
that's
becomes
furthest,
run
yeah,
over with grass.
yeah, okay, all right,
But it is a private way.
okay.
Mr.
Always
Gentleman?
has been.
Mr. Gentleman, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned the land area per dwelling unit. You're in need of variance on that.
Yep.
What is the land area? Are you including the parking lot with that calculation?
Yes,
And I guess you can do that because Decatur Avenue is a private way.
right, it's on the other side, right.
Okay. And you're, how much short are you? You said you...
We're about 150, we need 22,000 because it's 1,000 per unit.
Mhm.
We have approximately 20,500, so
Mhm.
if you divide that by 22, it's not,
Right.
it's not that much.
Yeah, I worry about congestion, and I know I'm trying to support your project because I think it's a good one. But I do worry about congestion. I wonder if it would make sense to try and reduce the number of units slightly so that you don't violate that condition. That would be my feedback.
Well, I'll speak to that. I mean, we always look at that question. What's the best use of the property? At the same time, we have to look at the expense. This is going to be a $7.2 million project right now. That's without having gone out to bid. That's with a construction cost estimate from the contractors who are doing the other project, and our experience in doing projects like this. So we will bringing in millions of dollars from the tax credit program, both the low-income housing tax credit program and the historic preservation tax credit program, and other funding sources available to us through the state through a competitive application process. Unfortunately, projects like this are extremely expensive. I know this is more my concern than your concern, but I'm just trying to explain to you why we have to maximize the number of units. The funding sources that come to us are all based on the number of units that we're creating. So there's a maximum number of dollars you can get based on the number of units. So as developers who are dependent on these funding sources, if we didn't have access to these funding sources, we could never do this deal. So without those funding sources, you know, we can't move forward. So that's one thing, and then the other thing is we go through the building with our architect, and like John said, we look at the existing window openings and the floor plans, the corridors, and we figure out how many units we can fit in without changing the existing, yeah.
Because I have to say, I was not, I'm aware that zoning is due, but frankly, it wasn't in my mind when we were doing this. I forgot that. We just went through the building, laid it out, getting the bedrooms work, come up with a number rather than saying, we went through the building, you know, without that number in the back of our head, like, you know, it's got to be 20, and to come up with a number. And we came up with 22 without you know, taking shoehorns and so it is a backed into number, and it is kind of interesting. Actually, it relates very closely to actually what the zoning, well, almost allows, but very close. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the zoning in this zone is very relaxed because it's an area where we do allow congestion. So even at 1,000 square feet per dwelling unit, that's pretty relaxed zoning. I understand your situation. I'm curious, does the land area include the land area of Decatur Ave?
No.
Doesn't?
We did not include that, no. I came up, Steve, I came up with the land area based on the plans on record.
Uh-huh.
So I haven't seen the new engineering, but the plans on record did not include the
Right.
area of Decatur.
So that's an interesting point, right? Because if it's a private way, if that were, you know,
Included.
if that were the driveway into the development,
Yeah.
then that would be something that was included. So perhaps, perhaps by including that, we can actually say that you make it.
Well, we're close, but like you say, the zoning is a little lenient there. There's no requirement of open space or anything like that. But I think what they're doing is going to really improve
I
that
understand.
area.
No, I
mean,
understand.
Especially the back where that parking lot is. I think there's been a lot of
Sure.
probably problems there in the past, so I
Have you
think
had
this
any preliminary talks with Steve Stoll, the Historic Board?
historic.
people? You have?
Yeah.
Because they'll give you great guidance as to the exterior and
Right, I
Which-
mean,
yeah. Okay,
and,
good,
and
that's
to be
great.
honest with you, the historic preservation aspect of the job adds to the cost too.
Oh, sure.
So what we're trying to do is create something that's, you know, gonna preserve the building, create a new vibrant residential community, put active use back into this sort of neglected and unsupervised area. The parking lot, I think, is a neighborhood problem. All of that, you know, unfortunately, is expensive.
Can
So
I,
we have to maximize the use, yeah.
can I just clarify? I know we actually moved the historic zone so that the St. Jean the Baptist Church was included in there. Is this is not in the historic zone, right?
We
So-
have applied to the state for that
was just
designation for this
changes in
building.
the church.
So I mean, I give you credit for, matter of fact, I like the fact that the windows aren't changing and,
Oh, yeah,
you know, you're really respecting the historic architectural beauty of that building without it being in the historic district. Yeah, exactly. I kind of knew that, but I wanted to make that clear so that
Well,
people
if it-
understood that
If
as
it
well.
was, Jerry, we wouldn't even have to come here.
Right.
We'd just have to go to the historic
have to,
board
yeah,
to it.
they-
But-
yeah.
But like, I think if you look at the job they've done on the other one, this is going to be similar. And I think by maintaining the historic nature of the building, there's more probably federal credits for them. So I think it's very important.
Can I just, Mr. Chairman, if you can indulge me for just a minute, just for the record, but I'm delighted to see this, and I know with the CBA, where they now sit was the nuns convent and the grammar school. I'll tell you, my father was the foreman in charge of all the carpenters for St. Jean the Baptist Church from the late 50s to the late 60s. And he actually, and I have the architectural plans, and they were used in the renovation for the CBA building, the large addition in the back of the convent. And, I mean, I have pictures of my father working in the labs here in the high school and putting down tile floors in the grammar school. So, you know, I have a... Yeah. So certainly, I'm delighted to see that. I'm delighted to see this, and it's nice to see that you know these buildings will be preserved and for future generations. So that's all I have to say.
Mr. Chairman, I had one other thing regarding the parking, and I can appreciate your situation where you have families who won't have cars and certainly may not have more than one car. And we have made exceptions to this under those circumstances for other developments. The church is a good example. But in that case, my concern, though, is you never know what's going to happen with these buildings, right? You never know that this is the initial intent, but we never really know long-term what might happen here. And in the case of the church, we had asked him to approach some of the area establishments that seem to have plenty of parking and see if there couldn't be some type of a plan worked out for a potential overflow situation. So somewhere along the line, parking becomes an issue here. Maybe, you know, there's a possibility that you could enter a lease with one of the local businesses or nursing homes or whatever it is to use some of the parking only in the event that it becomes a problem. You know, if there was something like that, if you could explore that before you come, that would make it a little bit more
I don't know if
amenable.
it makes you feel more comfortable, but this will be affordable housing in perpetuity. I mean, that's what we are. And that's what
That does help, actually, yeah.
So, if we move forward, if we succeed with our permitting and with our funding as anticipated, it will remain in perpetuity, which is considered 99 years through our funding program.
So we probably won't have to worry about it.
Probably don't, Stephen. And when we did the other project, we did reach out. We went up the street to the larger nursing home to try to get space without success. So she has spoken with Brian next door, and if that becomes available, there's not much value in that old parish hall. That would be an ideal parking spot, but until that happens, I don't think there's much other area around that we could use.
Okay. So you have already spoken to the nursing
She's
homes?
spoken to Brian. We spoke to the nursing home when we came in on Moody Street, which is up at the end of Moody Street, without success. We tried that.
Yeah.
So,
Even in a situation, you know, where, you know, could be only in the event of a difficulty with a lease or something like that?
it was a commercial condo. They didn't want to get involved in it, and it's very difficult. But
Yeah.
like she said, it's going to be affordable in perpetuity, and there'll be a restriction placed on it. So,
Okay.
Joe, you have any questions?
No, just a comment, I guess. I think with the money you're going to be spending on this project, I think, you know, it'll be excellent to reuse this historic building, and certainly that's something that we've attempted to encourage as we've gone along. It's certainly a perfect spot for that. So I think it's a great project, and I hope it'll work out for you.
The only comments I would have is, I know we try to get as much parking as possible. I know up there where it's gonna be for people from the acre, if they know they're moving into that project, and know there's only one parking spot per unit, they know that that's all they have. If they don't want one parking spot per unit, they probably wanna look to go somewhere else. If you're gonna, you know, take care of the people who live in that neighborhood, when we had the public hearing for the church across the street, a lot of the people came and spoke and said, we don't own cars. Most of us do only own one car. So that was one consideration that we listened to, was the neighbors on who have cars, who don't have cars, and we know that neighborhood typically does not have 2.2 cars a unit. I think by having at least one, obviously we're always trying to look to get the cars off the street. I think if you offer at least one, that's something I think that could be doable. You know, and I think people know they want to have one car. If they want to live there, that's the restriction. You know what's going on there. And if you're doing it for people who already live in that neighborhood, they're familiar with the surroundings, they know what they're getting themselves into, and that'd be their consideration whether they decide to encompass the property. How old is the building anyways? I know the last time I was in there was in the 60s, so I know it's been a long time since I've been in that building.
It says 1920 on the outside, but I think it was built in 1890.
Oh, yeah, I bet it's.
I know it's a pretty old building.
Yeah,
you know.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah. Like,
So most all your structurals in good shape?
Yeah, we've had the structural engineer go through and give us a Chapter 34 review, and it's pretty good.
that's good, yeah.
Like the grammar school, they built it.
If you just use the mic so people listen at home. if you
They
don't mind.
overbuilt
Yeah,
them,
thank
yeah.
you, yeah.
Like, it's got a good review from the structural engineer. There's some characteristics of the old buildings that, as well as they're built, for some reason they built them so they didn't, the main joists don't have a secure attachment to the exterior brick walls. So we're having to come in and we're providing a structural connection between a better connection between the joists and the wall, which is actually fairly routine. We did that on the grammar school, we'll do that here, but the members are actually huge. It's very well built, and so.
I think your comment earlier about if you can make that grade level for the handicap would be nice, because it's easier than trying to maintain if you
Right.
do a ramp, especially if you have to do like a
Right,
wooden
particularly
one or
right on the-
cement one. If you can
particularly right
just
on the
make
street.
It's so much, and I think you'd have handicap accessibility, which would be very important with the elevator, and make it
Right.
accessible for the people in the neighborhood. So I think if you could work that in.
We're gonna
I think
try,
that'd be
yeah.
very nice for you, I mean, to have that grade level.
Oh, thank you for that, yep.
Yeah, I think that would, if you can work it in, that'd be great. I mean, we know the concerns up there with the parking, we know the neighborhood up there, we've had some developments up there. I think the neighborhood is finally getting the attention it deserves.
Yeah.
I really do, and I think this could help finalize, make that whole street really look nice. I mean, when you have the elderly center right there, the church across the street's gonna be built up, you have the
They're all
grades, the elementary school now this here. I think you're doing wonderful work up there, and I think the city needs this type of development, I really do.
Sure.
I think there's a need for it, and I think sometimes as board members, we look to see what our city needs and how do we maintain, and help the people who live here. And if it's sometimes saying, okay, one car, that's it, if you're gonna go in there, keep that in mind, and if that's what the people who are gonna be living there need, then I think we're addressing their needs. So I think, this could work out to be a good project.
One other comment. What would really be nice, and I know you're looking at expense here too, but we talked to Brian McGowan about the church across the street there. putting in a little historical area. I mean, just to give a little history of the church. It'd really be nice if we just had a glass case in there with a little history of the high school.
What they did with the church, the suggestion wasn't to come in, it just had
Yeah.
in one of them,
You know, it
hallways,
doesn't
just had
have
a
to
little
be
history of the-
elaborate, doesn't
Some
have to be
pictures,
elaborate,
maybe.
but it,
Maybe some old pictures inside or
yeah,
something.
that's all. Talk to Steve again,
Yeah.
and boy, he'll, you know.
So if
he'll
you
get
come
some
in like,
stuff.
you know, the common area way, Mr.
Yeah.
Flood, you know, just
Yeah,
something there.
just something
Shows a little
inside to
history, you know.
commemorate the history.
I'm sure you have history there. Jerry sounds like he has some he can maybe offer.
He has some, that's right.
I actually have a picture of Father Morissette looking over my father's shoulder as
I
he's
mean, you
drilling
know,
a hole.
Father Morissette.
You know? I mean, that's something that, you know, that might tie it in and give a, you know, especially for your historic significance when you're
Yeah.
talking to historic people. You know,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, anywhere, when you pull that historic part in, it's nice to have. a
Or,
little
or
history
in the
with it.
hallways inside, that's always nice. People
Yeah,
walking
it
down,
is.
sees what it
Makes
looks like, yeah.
That much nicer, yeah.
But besides the dumpster, the snow storage, the lighting, and the parking, is there anything else you see here that we should address?
I think the main thing is, you know, we always address in this area, myself personally, is the parking and the, you know, the, land area dwelling units, you know. and-
I think what we did before, too, is we did a study on the surrounding streets that we submitted to the board, which we will do again,
Right.
showing on-street parking that
Yeah.
is available.
And I
Yeah,
believe you had
do
quite a bit
that.
of backup from the Vision of Planning and Development on that, too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
So they
do
might
that.
have some of that criteria still available.
Show the on-street parking
You
all
know,
around that
I
area.
remember they went up and they made a recommendation for that by what they looked in their neighborhood. So if you need the extra parking.
We did that last time, so
Right.
we can do
Yeah,
that
it
again.
worked, too.
I mean, if that data's still available from
Aaron,
Aaron and Company,
they're
they
gonna-
might be able
Yeah,
to
we
forward
still
some
have
of
that.
that to you.
It's
So, I
probably
mean,
2 months old, so.
You know, if that's available, obviously, that's nice to say, we're going along with the recommendation of planning and development by doing it this way.
Yeah,
It's a nice recommendation for us to consider.
right.
But we think, besides that, I think those are basically the issues that you had up there before with the
Right.
elementary and, doing what you're working with in the building and keeping the historic building together. Those are usually the issues that we do face. I can see where, you know, on the parking, you know, you do need the dumpster, you need the snow removal, whether you can keep it on site or not. Even sometimes with the snow, you know, you might not truck it off to begin with, but at least you have to push it into a pile before you truck it. They don't start scooping it up until they load it up first. So you need a little place to at least stack it until you start to truck it off. And then you need room to pull the trucks in onto the site as well. So, but I think that's basically the issue that usually for that neighborhood is what we deal with up there.
Yeah, you know, if we had the parking and we didn't have to go to the Board of Appeals, we could have come in under the conversion of an existing building,
I was
and we
thinking of
don't
that.
have the issue of the land area per dwelling unit, because it's not required.
Yeah.
That's
So-
what my notes here, I said the conversion dwelling, yeah.
So that's, you know,
Because you have the
that's
historic-
something else
yeah.
that wouldn't have been required if we came into the conversion of an existing building.
Right.
Because they appreciate that might not be there, but we need that other variance, so we have to do it, so.
So
that's
because of the
why-
variance, that's what prohibits you from that.
Yeah, and I think we still have to go for some unit size too, because some of them are less than 700, so we have
Now,
to.
getting back to the unit size, would I know you have several units up there, 22, would all of them be little short?
No.
Some would make it and some would be a little
Some would
short?
make it, some
Okay.
wouldn't.
But-
And
Some of the one-bedrooms.
Okay.
I think
So
some
that's
of
nice
the
because you
twos
do
too.
have, I think, if I wrote it down correctly, I
be
think
over
you had,
9.
okay, 4 units
We'll
on the
take a
first
look
floor, then
at
you go
it,
up. So if you have, you know, just a few of them that are short instead of all of them,
Yeah.
then it's,
We'll take a look at that again too, but like I said, it's kind of window-driven, the
Yeah,
location of those units, you know, so. But we appreciate your comments, and
Good luck with it.
well, we wish you well.
we
with the
we will
project.
proceed further.
Okay.
Good project,
Well, good luck, we wish you well.
Thank you.
really good.
Good night. Moving along on the agenda, under old business, we have no matters scheduled there. Under other business, we do have notices from budding town. Entertain a motion to place them on file, if there any concern to any board members.
So move.
Second,
Moving second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those matters are placed on file. We do have a couple of matters that are on tonight under the zoning board advertisements, which will be scheduled for a public hearing before the city zoning board of appeals on March 10th at 6:30 PM here in the city council chambers. There are 2 matters on the agenda, one being for a special permit, and this is a value self-storage. Property is located at 24 Durin Ave, and this is a regional retail. The petition is to extend the existing non-conforming use of self-storage facility by constructing additional buildings according to section 4.5.2 of the zoning ordinance. I think there's also a letter in here from the law department that was requested by, I'm not sure who, there was two Mr. Camacho from Eric Slagle, the Assistant City Solicitor, in here as well. There's a legal opinion on the issue. And then we do have a copy of plans as well.
Mr. Chairman, unless somebody can explain it to me, without the benefit of even the petitioner explaining, I would just say that we would not make a recommendation on this. I just have several, even on this, expand existing non-conforming use, but it was a special permit. And then even from the law department's finding, from personal experience trying to deal with approvals that have expired and whether or not there's been any material commencement of the project and whether or not moving around soil and putting up a fence is enough, or whether or not the fact that some of this was phased in or not. I just think without the benefit of really hearing the petitioner, personally, anyway, I just have a hard time giving any kind of a recommendation on this.
I think based on the record, it looks like what happened here is that they got a special permit for construction of 6 self-storage buildings, and in fact, built only 5 from the time the permit was issued in 1999 until 2003. Well, permits have a certain shelf life, and if you don't continue the construction, they can lapse. So apparently that's the opinion that they sought, is whether they could go under the original special permit and build the 6th unit, or if they would have to come back, and it looks like the Assistant City Solicitor said too much time has gone by, you no longer have the ability to build that 6th one without coming back and asking for renewal of that. So it looks to me like he's just going back for what he was originally approved for in '99, just to complete that project.
If I may, that's pretty much exactly what happened.
Is this basically the place up on Durin Ave behind Middlesex Street where the mobile station is
Yes.
now, next to the Wendy's, where the self-storage bay's on the back?
That's correct, yep.
I remember this coming before us in 1999, yeah.
The special permit.
There's like a mobile station there, there's a Wendy's there.
Correct.
And then other self-storage bays in the rear, and it has the side address, it has a Durin Street address, because you take that side street to get to them, but you can actually see them behind the mobile station, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the special permit is actually the zoning code. If you want to expand a non-conforming use, you can go for a special permit for that. So the special permit's not necessarily the same special permit that they went for over 2 years ago. It's a special permit to expand the existing non-conforming use, because the zoning code has changed since that time.
And if he had asked us, say, I'm gonna build 6 buildings, but I'm gonna build it in stages over the next 10 years, that probably would have been fine, but that wasn't the request, so it expired at some point, require him to come back in to request for completion of that original project.
So what he did is he built some and then complete the whole
Built
project?
5, he didn't build the 6th one, he's coming back for the 6th one
No,
now.
something for the 6th one, okay.
For whatever reason, I have no idea.
Probably needs more storage.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe the other ones are rented,
Maybe,
I don't
yeah,
know.
they didn't
Yeah,
finish
they rent
renting
those
them till
units,
now,
right,
I don't know,
Right,
but-
I mean, usually it
mean-
goes by demand, right? And maybe even,
Generally does, yeah.
maybe Jerry knows how this works, whether they lend the money to build so many, and then they would give him more upon completion of the others?
They may be looking for, sure, some lease space and make sure before they
Yeah, right.
continue, absolutely.
Yeah, it could be something of that nature, sometimes and then obviously you're not gonna build the other one, so they get the money to finish off the other ones before they build the new one sometimes, but,
Yeah, I'm still a little confused. If the special permit is for the I'm a little confused with the even.
Existing non-conforming use,
Existing non-conforming.
I am too. I don't- yeah. What's non-conforming?
Right.
I believe it's.
Isn't it zoned for that?
I believe it's the building that's non-conforming, now the size of the structures. I haven't had a chance to really go through what was permitted originally and what the change in the zoning code has
I think
been.
we gotta know that.
But in the zoning code, if you have an existing non-conforming use or building, if it's the bulk that is no longer conforming to what the code requires, you can extend it under certain conditions, and they're basically those conditions that the extension of that non-conforming use doesn't substantially have a negative impact on the, you know, surrounding areas, the neighborhood.
So this became non-conforming after it was originally approved with the zoning changes?
That's correct.
Okay.
Oh, all right, yeah.
Because they didn't act on time. Is that what you believe?
Okay, that makes a little more sense.
Right, he didn't build the sixth building within the time
So if he
frame.
built in the fixed time frame, it would have been conforming. Since he didn't, now it's non-conforming.
Still be non-conforming. That's correct. Yeah, that's good.
It'd still be non-conforming. It's just that the.
Right, because they didn't do it on time.
It'd be grandfathered.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So now that's why they have to come back for special permit before the zoning board of appeal. Right. Getting back to Mr. Fischett, does that answer some of your questions? Or you still had a motion to, I think it was,
I mean, personally, I still feel as though without, you know, it's currently, what he's asking for is a non-conforming use.
Right.
And without input from
From the
butters, and I don't feel comfortable approving
I don't either.
a non-conforming use without the input from other affected parties. So I'd second Jerry's motion to take no action.
for the motion for no action, due to no further explanation from the applicant? Any other way you want to word that, Mr. Fischett? Without, yeah, further
Further testimony from the applicant.
And, right, okay. And the motion there for no action, and motion's been second, all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye, chair votes yes. Aaron, do you have any questions on what the motion is?
No, I think I have it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving along, we have another matter done for special permit, and this is from Saints Medical Center, and the property is located at 847 Rogers Street, and that is a office park, and the petition is for the operation of a medical center / treatment clinic in an existing building located in the OP zone, which stands for the Office Park District, according to Article 12, Section 12.8C of the zoning ordinance. We have a,
Looks like it's all interior work in the building right next to the hospital.
On Rogers Street? It's not Rogers Street.
I guess that's still Rogers Street where Saints Memorial is,
Right, is
Yeah,
that,
it runs
there's
all the way.
offices in there now?
runs all the way from the Hunts Falls Bridge at the river up past Shed Park, you know.
Right, that's building right next to the hospital, right? Am I right?
where you said it's located, Steve? I'm sorry?
Well, if it's where I think it is, I think it's right on Rogers Street from the river, you know, where it starts from the river as it goes by Saints Memorial Medical Center there.
Right.
Yeah, here's a picture of the exterior part of the building at the very end.
Oh,
Saints
And I
Medical.
think there's
Yeah,
some
no
medical
problem.
offices in there now.
Just figuring out where it
Yeah, I
is.
believe there is medical
Right.
office. I think that was part of the application.
Right.
Made to
Oh,
me.
those medical offices, that's separate building. Okay. It's not Rogers Street.
Yeah, it just looks like they're allowing a medical center treatment clinic in that existing building. I have no issue with that.
I don't have it.
Motion to recommend approval.
Second.
Motion made by approval, and second. Any further discussion or approval? No. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. That matter, we recommend approval to the zoning board of appeals on that matter. Moving along, any general correspondences? Have any comments from any board members? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We adjourn. Good night, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.